That's my baby. I'm dying.
That's my baby.
We're going at it at 110%.
I just want 5 minutes of happiness, please. Just give me 5 minutes.
And they scored!
They did it!
Left, feet left.
What the hell was that? Oh, yeah!
What the fuck are you talking about?
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the weekly roundup. I'm Zach Burr. That's Daniel Bakley. Minus our usual third, knucklehead, I guess you could call it. With usually three knuckleheads, just the two knuckleheads tonight, but going to be all the same fun nonetheless. Phillies talk with Kyle Schwarber being in the home run derby. The Phillies beating the Marlins in back-to-back games. That feels good to, go beat the Marlins and win a series where you kind of feel like every time you're playing against them, something crazy happens bad against you. But we beat Cy Young yesterday, and then we beat the kid making his major league debut today. So that's good. But Schwarber will be in the home run derby, so we'll have some fun with that. Have some fun with the NBA, I guess, trade talks that you're talking about going around with Donovan Mitchell and ones like that. Jalen Hurts and different things that we're hearing about Eagles as we approach training camp. But, Daniel, how are you, my man?
I am doing good. After watching them lose those two games to Toronto, it was nice for them to at least take the first two games against Miami. Let's hope that they can take tomorrow's and go in on a winning streak into the break. That's what we need right now. We need to be right there. We came in today a half game out, but we do have 3 games in hand on St. Louis for that last wildcard spot. So it's nice to see them playing well after that 2 games, because if minus those 2 games, they've been red hot, and then the bullpen was hot today. I know we're going to talk about that a little bit in this first segment, but I'm doing good today.
Yes, we've got you double duty. You're over here getting your feet wet, being introduced to the production side of things. So, that should be fun for you, or not so fun, I guess, depending on how you look at it. But yes. NBA G League going on as well, so that was the other thing that we were going to talk about. As usual, we are brought to you by Alan Foy of eXp Realty. If you're looking to buy or sell a home or looking for a change in career or brokerage, you contact Alan Foy of eXp Realty LLC at 302-682-8820. Visit them at alan.foy@exprealty.com. For any of your brokerage needs, any of your basketball needs too, he can always be a big help, and would be interested to see his thoughts on the some of the trades that have been talked about around the league. Donovan Mitchell, some of the ones you saw kicked around, there was one that had 6 first-round picks, another one that had 7 first-round picks. I believe there was the one with 6 first-round picks also had 4 players who were also first-round picks. So you're like, that's essentially 10 first-round picks, all for Donovan Mitchell. I mean, that just seems absurd, the type of shit that's getting talked about at this point around the NBA with the way these trades are working. And what is up with the Knicks? Like, are they this desperate to have a star player in Madison Square Garden where they'll just give up 10 first-round picks so they can just be like, oh, look, we've got somebody to put asses in the seats? Because it feels like that's what the Knicks are doing. They're just chasing that star.
And don't forget, they just forked out over $110 million to bring in Jalen Brunson, and and apparently Mark Cuban came out and said they didn't even have a chance to offer him anything. He just took that New York Knicks offer and ran with it.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's I get Cuban's gripe that that's not the way it's supposed to work. But if Jalen Brunson wants to go play for the fucking Knicks that bad, why would it even matter? Well, we didn't have a chance to counter. Well, why would it matter if you did? He clearly didn't want to fucking play for you because he took the offer and went to New York and said, "This is where I want to be." So having a chance to counter wasn't going to do much for Mark Cuban. But yeah, it shows kind of how busted and exposed the whole process is as far as how all of this works. The Sixers, I mean, it's not just split stars either because the Sixers are in trouble with the P.J. Tucker thing. The league wants to investigate that to see whether or not, that was really, I think with, and this is the way it's always been, but, the league doesn't want it to look as if before, like from the beginning, like, it just, this team was going to sign this player. The writing was on the wall. It was bound to happen. It happens. And then people go, oh, well, like, it seems unfair. Well, of course it's unfair. I mean, it's been unfair for a long time, though. That's the way super teams get formed. None of this is fair. But, I mean, I don't – if P.J. Tucker wants to be with the Sixers and the Sixers want P.J. Tucker that bad and it all is, it's all mutual, I don't – like the process, well, we need to fix this. So what? So that P.J. Tucker can talk with a few other teams that he has no interest in signing with and then ultimately decide, okay, I'm still signing with the Sixers? I mean – how does that change this process long term? It probably doesn't. What the league needs to focus on if they want to stop shit like this from happening is trying to figure out how to prevent their star players from wanting to play in about 4 or 5 or 6. You've got a handful of cities that it seems like the stars, the actual legitimate stars in the NBA, that's where they want to be. It's Miami, it's New York, it's LA. It seems like it's one of those 3 cities. Boston, a little bit, but not as much as the other 3. We
got Dave Raska chiming in. Mike Trout and Ohtani will be traded. Highly unlikely.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure every team in the country. We say that every year, right? And every team in the country, every baseball team, every Major League Baseball team would love to trade for Mike Trout. You think if they had the resources to make it happen, that they wouldn't have done it already? It's one of those things that he's making so much money, and you're gonna have to give up so much that it's just gonna be a lot to find the right trade partner for that thing. So. You're kind of stuck with what you've got. It seems like on both ends, and I bet you neither side's really happy with it either. I bet you Mike Trout's not happy making all that money, but they continue to lose and suck every year. And at some point, the Angels are probably like, "What the fuck's the point of this?" Like, well, he's the face of baseball. Well, what's that have to do with anything? We don't market our stars anymore, so that doesn't help us at all, and we're not winning anything, so that's not helping us at all. So at this point, fuck.
I do want to get
back to that. Just pay the guy for this to be, a losing team every single year.
I do want to get back to that in a second, but we do have the poll question for today. Kyle Schwarber will win the home run derby this Monday. Agree or disagree? What's your opinion on that, Zach?
Well, you've got him. He's one of 3 lefties. It's him, Soto, and Corey Seager, and the Sager thing's interesting. You're like, oh, yeah, you played for how many years with the Dodgers, right? So that's kind of like a little bit of a whoop-de-doo. Tyrese Maxey's working out with LeBron James. I mean, I could not care any less.
We're gonna get to Juan Soto. We're gonna get to Juan Soto in a second. Don't worry about that.
Yes, Soto will be in the Derby there. He'll have a good chance. I like Soto, Schwarber. And then it's always hard to bet against Pete Alonso. He's kind of the guy that seems to have this format figured out. But yeah, I think I like one of those 3 the most. But it's a pretty cool field. You've got a field full of guys that are none of them are boring, right? It's definitely you've got a lot of star power and guys that have your interest on that card. So even Pujols, who's a guy who you're kind of like, it'd be fun to watch him make a deep run and go win it just because of the idea of what this is for being his last All-Star game and all that.
And he's going up against Kyle Schwarber in the first round. That's the 1-8 matchup. is Schwarber and Pujols in the first round. I'm
You
bringing
know,
the bracket up in a second. Let load. You got Schwarber against Albert Pujols. You got Juan Soto. He's the 4 going up against Jose Ramirez, who's the 5. You got Lonzo, who's number 2. He's going up against Ronald Acuna Jr., that's the 7. And then you got number 3, Corey Seager versus number 6, Julio Rodriguez. So those are the matchups right now in the Derby.
yeah, it's fun. You know, it'll be interesting to see what type of show I guess LA can put on. I think they're trying to market this whole thing as it being like a Hollywood type of thing, right? Well, I want to see how Hollywood it really is. I want to see the star power that comes out, you know, from an entertainment perspective. I want to see the whole spectacle. You know, I want it to be, you know, something that's a lot of fun and good for the game, not just one of these things that's talked about as providing home field advantage for you know, whichever team in the World Series. That's kind of gotten tired and old and boring, and nobody cares now that it leads to you know, getting home field advantage in the World Series or whatever it is. But yeah, you know, the idea of the spectacle, it could be a lot of fun if they do it correctly. But Major League Baseball hasn't done a lot of things correctly as of late. So
I think there's a very good chance that Schwarber could win it, because I have a feeling that maybe Acuna shocks Alonso in the first round. That's going to be probably the best matchup in the first round is Acuna and Alonso. You got division rivals going at it. They both can hit. Of course, Alonso is coming in having won it twice already. So that's the one time I'm going to be rooting for Acuna to win it, because I feel like if you could get Alonso out right away, then Schwarber should have a really good shot. And he's hitting it from the left side, so that's going to be to me an advantage there. We got Rob chiming in. Run up, fam. I disagree to the poll. 3-peat. So he's going with Peter Alonso. He's definitely going to be
Pope's a
one of
Mets
the
fan,
favorites.
so of course. Yeah, Pope's a Mets fan, so that's, you know, that's a homer pick. But yeah, you know, it's hard to win 3 in a row of anything. You know, that's just really, you know, it's really the truth of a lot of that. To win 3 in a row of anything, no matter what you're doing, is pretty tough. So I'll put my money on anybody that's not Pete Alonso, I guess. But yeah, I mean, I'll definitely be rooting for Schwarber, and it would be fun to see. I was joking with you yesterday, like, you know, what if Bryce comes out and is able to throw him BP or something?
Yeah,
and be the guy that's his home run derby pitcher. Like,
that's like
just
the new
because
thing
he's
now.
there for the All-Star festivities and he can't play doesn't mean he can't participate, right?
And we know how the home run derby is now. You got the guys' fathers coming out to pitch to him, or like their favorite like high school coach coming out. Everything is fair game there. I wouldn't be surprised if he came out there and did it as like a thing, because he can't play, but he can probably pitch with the one hand, depending on what one it is. So I wouldn't be surprised to see that happen. It would actually be pretty cool.
Yeah, and just like the buzz that it would bring to everything. It's just kind of, you know, it adds an extra cool factor to Schwarber trying to win the home run derby. But bring out one of his pitchers, like you know, bring out Nola or somebody that like you felt like also deserved it, and let him be your derby pitcher.
Yeah, definitely. Like right now, like with how hot he is, like I'm going to say, for me, I don't want to say it. I think it's like a tie right now between Alonso and Schwarber, because both are hitting it well. I believe Alonso is second in the NL now in home runs. If he's not, then he's third. But then Schwarber, I got to go with Schwarber with this one, just because he's leading. That's what he hits majority of the time, home runs. He's actually hitting the ball well, better than I thought he would. Like I thought he was going to hit like 220. I think he's gotten it up a little bit, or he's at that spot. But he's hitting like I only thought he was going to hit 30 home runs this year, and he's already at 29. So he's got 2 months to get 1 home run for me to hit the quota that I was hoping for this year. So it took him a while. It took him to June to get hot. Like he had a decent amount going into June 1st. June, he hit like 13 or 14, and then he's had it added a little bit more in July so far. But with Bryce Harper out, he's been the catalyst on that team, kind of that leader by example, like trying to will him back into games with those solo shots. He had another one today, a solo shot. I wish he had guys on base when he did it. And I get why they put him at leadoff the majority of the time. It's to give him extra at-bats, but I really wish that we can get that leadoff man. Like we said the last week, I want that leadoff man so that we can move him to like the 3 spot, and then he can start hitting those home runs with guys on base to get us bigger leads. We got another one. What's your guys' opinion about Derek Gunn's sources about Jalen Hurts, OTAs, and what A.J. Brown said? We'll get into that in another segment right now, but we're going to break right now into the Phillies-Marlins. Of course, today the Phillies beat the Marlins 10-0. What are your thoughts about today's game? I'll just give you a quick opinion from me. I was very happy with the bullpen once again. The bullpen went 4 innings. I think they had 6 Ks, and they didn't give up any runs at all. So that's a big plus there for me.
Yeah, they're going against the kid that's making his major league debut, so you kind of really don't know what you're going to see or what you're going to get, and what could come out of it. Sometimes those kids are juiced up in that first start, and they're just trying to overthrow, and you can touch them up a little bit. Other times, they're filthy, and all that adrenaline's going, and they show out. So you didn't really know what to expect. I saw the kid talk yesterday. I remember I'm down here in Florida, so I get the Rays channel and the Marlins channel, and I watched some of the game yesterday when we were playing against Sandy, and they had Mayer up, and they were his name is Max Mayer, and they were talking to him about how he's going to make his debut this series and yada yada, and they brought him in the interview, and I remember thinking during the interview he just kind of sounds very he sounded very robotic and kind of, a lot like I think some guys, they get to this level when you ask them questions, you listen to him talk, and you go, yeah, this guy's ready. He gets it. He's just somebody that is ready for all this spotlight to be on them and understands it all. And he just seemed like somebody that gave me the complete opposite feel. And I don't know why it just made me feel like, I don't know anything about the kid as far as what he is as a prospect, but I'd be a little bit scared, as far as if I'm the Marlins and throwing him out here in his first few starts. He just seems like somebody that's very nervous and kind of deer in the headlights type look to this whole thing. Maybe he's just not comfortable in front of cameras answering questions, but that's a little bit weird too. Like, you're a professional athlete. Most of these guys are, a little bit better with that. It was very robotic. A lot of ums and ands and type of answers to questions, and definitely like it just, there was zero personality that came off of it, and I immediately was turned away. So I didn't realize he was pitching today, but I'm kind of glad we touched him up and smacked him around a little bit, because he really did nothing for me in that interview.
Well, everybody on the team got a hit today too.
What's that?
I said everybody on the team today got at least one hit, but Stubbs only had one at bat when he came in as a pitch hitter. So, and we had 16 hits overall today. So we definitely hit him up. It took into the 4th inning, but we got the job done and got him out in 5.
Yeah, JT's maybe starting to put it together again a little bit. Didi looking as good as he possibly can all the way up until the deadline will be really good. Want to trade him or something like that. Bohm returning to the lineup was big. It's a team that right now you look at it and you feel like it's a playoff team, but you just know that something's got to be done here at the deadline to try to improve this team. And we talked about those options, whether it's Benintendi, who continues to ball out with Kansas City, or whether you go in a different option and you're trying to bring in an arm. It just seems like it's inevitable that something's going to be done at this point to try to improve the squad. Logan O'Hop is a name that, we've got 3 guys that are going to be representing the minor league, organization and games. And Logan O'Hop's a guy that's interesting for me, our top catching prospect, because I kind of look at it and go, he might be the name that becomes the wild card when it comes to us trying to make something happen at the deadline with any of these guys. Mick Abel will probably be in a deal. Mick Abel, Mickey Moniak, and then you might go Logan O'Hop. Like that might be what you lead a package with if you really want needed to get one of these elite players that you're talking about. Luis Castillo, the pitcher for the Reds. A lot of different directions you could go, I guess. What are some of the names as far as guys that are available right now, as far as that, like the hot deadline names? Who are those names? I know outside of Benintendi and the ones that we've talked about. Google that real quick and find a list.
Here's
of just the names that are going around.
Well, if you want to talk one right now, they brought it up earlier. Where he said Juan Soto to the Phillies. Juan Soto was offered.
Yeah, well, that's a pipe dream. One, they would never trade him. They would never trade him to a division rival. That's like when shit like this happens. It's sad and the organization hates it. But like the only thing that they would do to make this situation worse is like trade him to the Phillies. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like it's like the only thing you could do to make this situation worse. But that's a pipe dream, him coming here. I mean, obviously, I would love that, but it's just silly. But yeah, I don't even know if he goes at the deadline as much as it's just something that might be something you wait till the offseason because you're really trying to get the best deal you possibly can. And a lot of times things at the deadline are kind of just mashed together and kind of, some trades happen because it's just best for both teams at that time. And a lot of rental players, a lot of things that go on where you're just trying to get better for a half a year sort of thing. It's the off season where a lot of those trades happen that are like the groundbreaking ones that kind of alter the directions of franchises. The Giancarlo Stanton type trade comes to mind when the Marlins traded him to the Yankees, right? It's trades like that. Like that's usually a December sort of thing. It's it's an off season thing that like teams like the Yankees and the Red Sox and organizations like that are trying to make a big splash to try to either make a quick impact or kind of long-term, big picture type thing of turning their the organization around. And that's kind of where I see this going with Soto is you're going to have one of those organizations in on it. The Yankees, the Red Sox, the Dodgers. Although the Dodgers, you kind of feel like, how many guys can they pay? I know it's the Dodgers and they've got all this money, but even you guys can only pay so many people. The Yankees, though, I could see the Yankees making it happen, especially with all the other stuff the Yankees have going on from contractual perspective. They might be able to find out a way to get some guys that they feel like overpaid out of there and make something happen. Go along with what's in their farm system. But yeah, I mean, Soto coming to the Phillies would never happen at any point in a million years.
No. I could see him getting traded after the season starts, but not to the Phillies. Like I feel like when he's declining that offer, it's him saying he wants to go to a team that is winning, and the Nationals aren't showing any signs of that right now. It was a big number too. It was 15 years, $450 million. That's a huge offer. That's like a big payday. And it's saying something.
All he gave a fuck about was the money, he would have been there in an instant. The guy's clearly a ball player.
Yeah, he wants to play. He wants to win. He wants to go to whatever team can help him do that the best, or whether he has to decline it to get traded to a team and make it happen. That's
dude, I mean, he would absolutely mash at Yankee Stadium.
Yeah.
I mean, that lefty swing of his, I mean, dude, he would just fucking mash at Yankee Stadium. He might hit 50 bombs there. You know what I'm saying? Like the dude would hit cheapies.
What's going on, Tom? We got Tom chiming in, yo, guys. But I can only imagine what they're asking for him now. You got to think a guy like this, MVP, probably is going to bring in 2 to 3 proven guys right now, especially for the contract that he's going to get. The Nationals are going to ask out of the ass for him. They're going to want to improve their team instantly with what they offer for Soto. It's like if you think that Donovan Mitchell thing with the 7 first-round picks is crazy, this might be even crazier because this is right now one of the best players in baseball, and he's 23.
If you look at the Nationals, right? I mean, it probably would have been stupid for them to commit all that to him anyway. Yeah. I get it. It's a face of the franchise sort of thing, but it's just that's a silly deal to offer any player 15 years and $440 million. And then, on top of it, you are in a position with him, with his age and everything being what it is, where, you see some of the deals that happen around baseball and some of the returns that these teams can get. I mean, if you're the Nationals and you play everything right, I mean, look at the Orioles right now. The Orioles are all of a sudden in wild card contention in the American League because they've spent all these years just absolutely garbage, but it's finally paid dividends because they drafted well, they scouted well, they've got all this young talent in the organization, and it's all kind of coming up together now and making a lot of noise at the same time, and they're all cheap. You're not going to have to pay them, for a few years, and you could really do some damage with a young core like that if you're an organization that isn't looking to have a big payroll. And that's the type of deal that, if you trade Soto, it can get you that sort of return. You can go out and rape a team's farm system, a lot like the Yankees, and take all 5 of their top prospects. And if 3 of those guys turn into stars, you're in good shape. And, I think if you're the Nationals, that's where you've got to look at it. Yeah, I'm sure you'd love to get a couple, MLB ready players in it, but it's the problem with that is it then comes back to, how much you're willing to pay guys and where exactly they want to go. I think the Nationals have made it clear they're okay with paying guys and having a big payroll. They're in D.C., right? They just won a World Series. It's not like it's a small market, and then you got the World Series money on top of it. So I'm sure that's less of the issue as much as it's about, who they want to commit the money to. But still, there's a lot of creativity and a lot of options they would have involving a Soto trade. And what they would want to get in return. But it also limits, it comes back to that thing that we talk about, the same thing with the Mike Trout trade, where it limits your trade partners. It limits who you get to do, who you get to do business with, because not everybody has a farm system capable of making, of even being in this conversation with you. And not everybody has, if you think that a team is going to give up their entire farm system to trade for a guy that they don't feel like they have any chance of signing long term, that's going to be silly too. Like, nobody's going to do that. So again, you've got a team like the Yankees, the Red Sox, the Dodgers, organizations like that are in there, the Astros maybe, that we know are going to be willing to cough up huge sums of money to sign the guy long term, or else there's really no point of them making this trade. I mean, I guess, they could spin it that there is, but that's a hard spin and a hard sell to try to sell to your fan base if you're the Yankees or a team like that we gave up all this for a guy that's going to be here for 2.5 years because if we win a World Series now, it's worth it. Is it? I don't know. You better be damn sure you're going to be able to make a run at this guy when it comes to signing him long term.
I think that's why part of this is psychology here on the national side, because they could have just not said anything and then just offered it, let it go, and then when it came to that point, just have it come out. But they put it out here, I think, for a reason. I think they put it out there because they want everybody to know, hey, he's available. He declined it. He wants to go to a team, and it's going to entice somebody.
That's the big thing, right?
Yeah, it's going to entice somebody to go at him. And it could be a team that just wants to use him as a rental. I'm not putting that out away. I do know that it's going to be a team that knows comfortably that they can sign him, but it could open the door because they put it out there now for a team that thinks that they can make it into the playoffs or is in there, but they need to get to the next step to get to the championship level. And they're going to give up the farm system to do that. And I could see a team sneaking there and making a play for them, like say a St. Louis, who has some hitters already that need like the next guy. Like they have Goldsmith, they got Arenado, they got Edmund, they got a couple other guys there. They got pitching there, and they have a good farm system. Maybe they try and bring him in to make them even better, to give them that extra push because they're at that
that's not a Cardinals move, though. That's not a Cardinals type move. They don't give up the farm. They'll go make a trade, but they're very strategic about when they pull the trigger on those trades. The Ozuna trade, the Goldschmidt trade. I don't think you're going to come in there and rape them and just completely raid their farm system and feel like you came out stealing all these. Like, they're not stupid. The Cardinals organization has never been.
I'm not closing that door, though. Is what I'm saying. I think that the door.
Yeah, I'm with that. I mean, I think the big thing about them, them mentioning the fact that he turned down the offers for obvious reasons. One, if you come out as the Nationals and say, "Oh yeah, we'll listen to the trade offers, he's available," teams are gonna be like, "Why the fuck would you do that? Like, this is a generational player. You can make the face of your franchise."
Exactly.
So you've almost got to make it clear, hey, we tried to sign him. Look at all the money and all the years we offered him. He's the dumb one that turned it down and said, "No, I don't want your 15 years and your $440 million." Well, guess what? He could be your problem now, because if he didn't want our 15 years and our $440 million, is he really going to want yours? Maybe this is a guy that is like, he don't want to be tied down long term like that. You might be better off trying to give him 3 years and $100 million when he hits free agency.
And it's not making you look desperate, because you're not going in there and saying, "Hey, we need to get rid of this guy." It's you saying you wanted to keep him, but he said no, so it keeps his stock up high, because you're not making
gives you more leverage.
It gives you more leverage there. So that's why I think they planted this there on purpose, because of that intention. And it was a good move by them, because they're last place right now. They're not going to make the playoffs, of course. They want to bring in as much talent as possible. If that means getting rid of the best player on their team, which just so happened to have won MVP, or I should say was an MVP candidate, then that's what they're going to have to do. And he's coming in on a down year. Some people might spin that, but even his down year is good enough to make the All-Star game, because he's playing well in general. So it's like they got all these things there to make it happen. I think it happens maybe in the offseason, unless somehow he decides to take that deal. But I think he's gone after the season if he's not taking that deal, if they offered it to him again.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of, they're both, the Nationals are aware of that whole idea of that ever happening. Signing him long term like that is over, and that's why they've come out to make this announcement now. Because I mean, it's, I don't even know what else you would do. I'd almost feel so insulted if I'm like, how do you walk into the building every day? I mean, I mean, I don't know. It's hard, because I'm the guy that always looks at things both ways, right? And I always support the players usually in this situations. And it's not like I'm ripping Soto for turning it down. You do what you got to do. You do what you want to do. You're the one that's 15 years, bro. Who the fuck knows who's baseball careers? 15 years, great. He's a great player now, but who the fuck knows where he'll be in 5 years, let alone 15, The Angels did that with Pujols, and they signed him to a 10-year deal, and he was garbage for about 7 of them, right? So, I mean, you do what you got to do as a player, whatever you feel like is in your best interest at that very moment, because you never know when things can change. And next thing you know, you blow a knee out and your whole career trajectory is different. But, I mean,
and I
tell you what.
This is $35 million a year.
They won a World Series 2 years ago. I don't know what they were trying to sell to him, but it clearly was not, anything that kind of came across as them getting back to a World Series anytime soon, was it?
No.
It's not like the Nationals are like a loser organization all of a sudden. Like, they won the World Series a couple years back. You'd think they'd be able to sell the idea of, we'll get back there and do it again. We know how to.
And why do you think the number was $450 million? Because it's more than the asking price probably Because if you think about when Harper signed, what did he sign for? $350 million or somewhere around that. And Harper is the one that won. And Harper won the MVP, but Harper's a little bit older than him. So but then they offered more years and then more money on top. So it might be something similar in that range. So they wanted to give him more cushion in that deal. And he's still getting, with the deal, he's getting $35 million. So in 2 years, he would make $70 million in that. So just like you said, say he slumps or he gets an injury that is bad and he loses out on a year or two, he's still making a lot of money with that. But it says something, if this is true, then he definitely is going for winning, and he doesn't think that like you said, the Nationals are in that push to win anytime soon. If
that's what it is. And what's weird is, I wouldn't even say it's weird because, I mean, but guys like Soto, and the background that they come from, places like the Dominican Republic and different places like that, all these kids that come from these Latin American places, the Venezuelas, the Dominican Republics, these very baseball-heavy Latin American type traditions. I mean, it really is one of those things that is a lot, for a lot of them, baseball is everything, right? Baseball is life sort of mentality from the time that they're, really, really young kids. And he seems to be, and I'm not, obviously it's not the case with every single guy that ends up hitting the market like that, but he at least seems to be a guy. Soto seems to be one that when you watch him play, that it's a mindset where he loves baseball. He loves being good at baseball. He has so much fun playing baseball. And then the cherry on top for him seems to be winning and being a guy that, is in a competitive environment, and it's just not a competitive environment right now. And he wants to go to a competitive environment. And, people rip Manny Machado that seemed like he was selling out for money when he signed in San Diego. And, I know they haven't won anything yet, but they are way more relevant now than they were before he got there, right? They're making noise now in the National League. They're starting to challenge for, playoff positions in the National League. And he's a big part of that culture by being able to sign in a with a team like that, where it kind of makes it clear, hey, okay, things can be a little bit different now. We're not just going to be bottom feeders. And then it helps when you've got young talent around you and the guys like Tatis and things like that. But that's the main difference, right, is like those guys sign there. If you want to trade for a Juan Soto, you're going to have to give up like a Fernando Tatis Jr. type of prospect. That's what's crazy about it. You might have to give up a couple different, Fernando Tatis Jr. type prospects. And it's just like, all the teams that have these great farm systems, Orioles, for example, none of them are going to go trade everything that's in their farm system for a guy like Soto. They've spent all this time building that farm system into what it is so that they can try to compete with all that young talent. So it's like you might be in a position if you're the Nationals, no matter how much, we'll start seeking trades for him. Yeah, good luck. Like, how's that going to go? Like, where's that going to go? Like, what are you really getting out of that? Like, are you ever going to get back in a trade what really seems to be worth it in value? Probably not. This is one of those times where you're going to look at it and probably go, it's like, I don't really know what you can get back in value that's going to equal Juan Soto. You just probably won't. It's not going to happen.
No, you're right with that one. And bringing up the Baltimore Orioles, it came out that apparently their whole roster is making the same amount altogether as Max Scherzer is. So Max Scherzer is technically worth more than the whole Baltimore Orioles roster money-wise. So why would you pay that guy all that money and when he's going to take up like 70% of your roster, your money count there? Because just like that, he's going to be getting twice as much almost as Scherzer, and Scherzer's worth more than that team. I think it winds up limiting your team to like the playoff teams and then like 3 or 4 teams that are on the fringe looking to make it in. Just like you said, the big markets out there on the East and the West. Then I'll even throw in Texas because of Houston. And then
I would agree with you with Houston. Houston has made themselves legitimate main event players, if you will. You know what I mean?
And then I'll throw in Tampa because Tampa has it both. They have the talent, they're winning, and then they know how to get rid of somebody when they need to. They have that knack of, oh, this guy is playing great right now. We can get rid of him for so much talent. I would throw them in there as a sneaky team, even though they're in the playoffs right now.
That I wouldn't be surprised about, and this might make you laugh, but like I wouldn't count out a team like Toronto, because Toronto's in a position in the American League East where they, they've proven over the past few years that they're willing to spend more money now. Springer and George Springer, guys like that. They're not going to let go of Vlad Jr., right? Like, he's going to be the face of that franchise. They will find a way to ink him long term, just because. But could you imagine, you're in Toronto. That's a huge market, right? It's the New York City of Canada. If you want to, you can spend as much money as you want, and you just might feel like you're obligated just because of what the American League East is around you with the Yankees and the Red Sox and teams like that. But, man, with that, and you want to talk about a team that's got a ton of young talent, might have enough young talent to make a trade like that happen. Bo Bichette, is a name that maybe comes to mind. You could go Bo Bichette and Kevin Biggio, and you've got two really good young players right there that, if you're like Toronto, you're like, oh, well, those guys, I don't want to give them up. They're good young players. Yeah, they're good young players, but, like, Juan Soto's, like, light years ahead of them, and you would give them up in a heartbeat to get Juan Soto.
No, here's the thing, though. I think for some reason I would think that in a trade back, they would have to include Manoah in return, that the star pitcher that they have right now, right there in Toronto. I think they would have to trade him to have any shot at getting Soto, because I don't
know about Manoah, but yeah, you would think there'd have to be a strong young arm in there somewhere.
He's the strong young arm there at the team, because they already had like three pitchers there, and he's the young stud of that group. He just came in last year, and now he's showing up right now. And to get a guy like that, I think you would have to get him. And for some reason, I don't think that they're going to do Bichette. I think it would realistically cost Manoah, maybe the catcher Kirk, and then a big bat in the farm system, because Kirk is a guy that came on this year, made the All-Star team as a catcher.
That wouldn't be enough to get. That wouldn't be enough to get Soto.
I'm saying there's more to it, but that would be the start. The starting.
Yeah, Bichette's a good player, but I feel like if you're looking at it and saying, hey, like it's like when the Dodgers went out and got Mookie Betts. Like, you're going to give up a guy like an Alex Verdugo, who's a good player, but you still look at it and go, this guy's superior to that guy. Like, great. Like, yeah, like Bichette's a nice player. I like the fact that his daddy, is Dante Bichette. Sure, same thing with Kevin Biggio. You like who his daddy is and all that, but you're like, those two. That's why I feel like if you don't want to give up Manoah, those two should be able to make it go, okay, if I went those two and I went Kirk, and then you went like two prospects in the minor league system, now you might have something without having to give up Manoah. I guess if you wanted to keep those two and give up Manoah, you could, but if you're the Blue Jays, I think the way you look at it is go, we've got plenty of offense now. We want to make sure we've got a stud pitcher to make sure we bring all this together, and that's where Manoah's the guy that you want to say he's the one guy we don't want involved in any of this. And maybe you'll listen to all these other names outside of Manoah and Vlad Jr. Obviously, okay, like everybody else is we could talk about. Anybody else we could talk about, and there's still plenty of young names there, that you could talk about as far as being involved in that conversation.
I'm just thinking of the Nationals and what they need. They need like a pitcher, and then they would need at least a hitter in return. And I don't.
Well, Daniel, you know what? But you know what, Daniel? You can't be a beggar and a chooser. Okay, if you want to be the Nationals right now, and you want to say the guy's available, and you want to start shipping him and listening to trade offers, you can't have your cake and eat it too. You either ship them around and you listen to offers and you pick which one you like the best and you pull the trigger on it, or you keep the guy and it is what it is and you ride it out for as long as you're going to ride it out, and you try again this offseason or next offseason or next deadline or whatever whenever that time comes up again. But yeah, I mean, at some point you keep, we would like that trade, but we really need this position and this position. You need to shut the fuck up and take whatever deal's given to you at this point, because you ain't got any of the leverage, do you? You can't be a beggar and a chooser, and that's kind of what they're being there. So I don't know. I mean, you're in a tough spot. You've got a guy that's a generational player, and no matter what, you're not going to get back anything close to what would be considered worth it. It's like when the Mariners traded Griffey, and the best player they got back in that deal was Mike Cameron. They're like, Mike Cameron's a good player, but like, this is just unfair. Like, this is just. Imagine being Mike Cameron in that trade too, because he came into Seattle and hit 4 home runs in a single game that year. The first year he gets traded to Seattle, he hits 4 home runs in a game, ties a major league record, and still, like, all people are just like, yeah, but like he's not Griffey. And you're like, yeah, I'm with you.
And then Griffey goes and has that career. I would say career, and not career-ending injury, but career-changing injury, because he was never really the same afterwards.
No, and it's amazing. I mean, you're just like, how do you, the dude still hit 600 career home runs? You're like, if he doesn't blow his hamstring out and just completely fuck his shit up, imagine, where this guy, where he ends up still going and the things he accomplishes.
Yeah.
Because even when he was healthy in Cincinnati, even if he got later on, you would see the glimpses of the old Griffey. He hit 36 bombs or whatever the one year. I believe it was 06. He hit 36 bombs because he was finally healthy, and it looked like he had his legs underneath of him again. There's different things like that made you go, yeah, like when he's healthy, the dude still rakes. But good Lord, you'd never seen a guy that seemed like became more injury prone, in such a quick amount of time than it did with Griffey when he got to Cincinnati.
Yeah, we got Frank coming into the chat. I'm dropping in to say hello. Hello, pals. What's going on, Frank?
Say hello. What was that old 80s? That was an old 80s song, wasn't it?
Yeah. But let's transition from this topic to the next one, the MLB All-Star festivities. We talked about the Home Run Derby. We dropped in a little bit about the Futures game. We got 3 Phillies into it. Today, they finalized the rosters. He had a couple moves that went on. Of course, they took out Jose Altuve, and he was replaced in the starting lineup by Andres Jimenez of Cleveland at second base. And then they made another move where with Chisholm being sidelined in the outfield, Chisholm being sidelined at second, he's being replaced by Jeff McNeil of the Mets. And then they just put in William Contreras of Atlanta will replace Bryce Harper in the lineup.
Yeah, that had already been announced about a week ago, because they were talking about how his brother and him are going to start on the same team. Wilson Contreras with the Cubs will start at catcher, and then William, or whatever his name is, will start at DH for the Braves. That's pretty cool. That's fun stuff, obviously. Yeah. Growing up as brothers and getting to, I'm sure that's one of the things you talked about. Wouldn't that be cool to be able to, you're playing a World Series against each other or something like that, and they're playing on the same All-Star team. That's
and then Tyler Anderson, nice. Tyler Anderson of the Dodgers was added to the team as a replacement. I forget who he's replacing. They didn't put down who it was. But he was added. It was somebody that pitched today. So somebody who pitched today. So they're not going to be able to pitch on Tuesday at all. And they just put down the note that the Contreras brothers are going to start the All-Star game for the NL. So I think I wonder the last time brothers were able to start on one team in the lineup.
It was the Alomar brothers in the 90. I believe it was the Alomar brothers in the 92 All-Star game. I don't remember which year it was, but I know for a fact it was the Alomar brothers, Sandy and Roberto Alomar. Because I read it the other day. But yes, that was the last time. So it's been a while.
And it's catcher also, because you got Wilson Contreras, who is catcher for the Cubs, but then you got William Contreras, who's going to DH. And he's on Atlanta. Right. So that's a pretty cool thing right there. But we got a couple guys in the chat. There's no need to trade Soto. The Cats are in the driver's seat. And then we got Greg chiming in. What's up, fellas? Disagree to the poll. He'll beat Pujols, but will lose in the next round. It depends on who he's facing in the next round. Because I think he can get past Pujols. And then I think he could go to the finals. He should go to the finals, but it would take for him to have like a bad round for him not to advance. And I feel like with how he's been hitting, he should hit a lot of home runs, definitely in Dodger Stadium. But
hold on 1 second. I'm trying to check something here.
No problem. But other than that, we got the All-Star game. Oh, here it is. Austin Riley and Cronenworth were added as well. They were just added. Arenado's not playing. And then I think Garrett Cooper's either not playing or he just got added as well. There's 4 add-ins. Josh Hader might not play. So there's a lot of movements that will happen in the past week between last week and then today, because you start to see it getting finalized a little bit. Who do you think should be the favorite right now, the NL or the AL?
I think the NL might have the pitching advantage as far as just the depth of it all goes. But it's, the game's in LA and the Dodgers being World Series contenders, you would have to think it's like a little, there's a lot there for me to make you think that, the National League would have a chance to win. I believe the American League won last year, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yes, they've been like dominating the matchup the past 10 years, I believe it is.
Yeah, it seems like a good time for the National League to go end that little run and win one of these. So,
and how lucky is it for the AL that, of course, they have Shohei Ohtani, who can essentially take up one spot for 2 positions, because they have him listed here as pitcher and then as DH. So he could essentially, with that new rule, he can come in, and there's been some talk that it's going to be Kershaw and Ohtani who are going to pitch as the starters in the game, with, of course, it being in LA. You got the Angels and the Dodgers, so that'd be a cool thing right there. But you can take him out after he pitches and then just put him right in that DH spot and keep him in there. And he's only taking up 1 spot, so it gives them an extra spot to give to somebody else that normally they wouldn't have, because you got Shohei Ohtani who can do 2 things at once.
Yeah, well, Ohtani, he would, as soon as he would have pitched, he would then probably stay in the game at a DH or in right field or something like that. I guess it would have to be DH, right? They said he has to DH.
Yeah, they have it listed as DH because of the new rule that they did this year, where he can pitch, and then as long as he comes in and he either DHs or he does like a switch at another spot, they can do that. But more than likely, he's listed as DH, so that's probably what they would do.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. It's exactly what they would do, and it's he's not going to play the whole game, I wouldn't think, but you'd probably have him have a couple at bats, and then pitch an inning or so.
Yeah, I'm going with the AL right now because of the bats. I think their pitching can do enough. You got Ohtani, you got Shane McClanahan, who right now is 1 win away from the Triple Crown going into the All-Star break. He leads the AL in he's 1 away in wins. He has 10, and then the leader has 11. He's leading in ERA, and he's leading in strikeouts. So he's right there. You got him, Ohtani, you got Manoah, and then you got Justin Verlander. And then I haven't even mentioned Garrett Cole yet. Whereas on the other side, it's a little bit more balanced, but I think with the AL having the advantage in the hitting, having a little bit of that top heavy pitching wise helps out that AL. Plus, they have that little extra spot since Ohtani can pitch and hit. So I'm going to give them the edge again this year. I think the NL's closing the gap, but I still think that until we see the NL win, I'm going to favor the AL. We got Pete chiming in. Even fam disagree to the poll. Loves Schwarber in this format. What are his odds? He is the number 1 seed, so I don't know what his odds are right now, but they have him listed as the number 1 seed.
Brinky's a degenerate like me, Daniel. Brinky likes to bet on all this shit. That's why he's asking what his odds are. I finally hit a parlay today. God dang it! I'll tell you what. I had like 3 different parlays that got busted. No runs to be scored in the first inning, which is usually like most games. There's not usually a run in the first inning. The majority of them in the course of a day statistically won't have a run scored in the first inning. But it seemed like, man, there were so many of them today, and so I just had the second game of the Mets Cubs doubleheader and the Padres D-backs game. Had them in a 2-team parlay. No runs to be scored first inning, and it's was scoreless for both heading into the second. So we finally won something today, Daniel. So that's good. Yeah. That's why I was checking for that longest time, trying to see the baseball scores and figure out what was going on. But I'm with Ricky. I might throw some money on Schwarber.
And Rob says, I feel like he won't change his swing like some guys and be in a second half slump. Yeah, he's a hot guy when it gets warmer out. Just like we said before, he got hot once it hit June. And that's when he started hitting. He has that same stance and same swing that he always has.
Right.
Yeah, I
some of these guys. Some of these guys have swings that are already for home run derby type stuff. A lot. It's part of the reason why Alonso is so good in this format. Other guys like we saw Soto struggle a little bit in the format last year because he's not a guy that you think of and goes, okay, he's just, hit you 40 bombs, but you look at his swing, right? Like Schwarber strikes out a ton. There's a ton of swing and miss. The Schwarber's game, he's going to hit 240, not 340, and hit you all those home runs. Whereas Soto's a guy that's going to hit, 300. He's going to hit you a ton of homers. He drives the ball to the gaps. He's a gap-to-gap hitter, So he's a guy that doesn't have that big, uppercut, home run hitter swing that we see with a lot of these guys. And he is the guy that with something like home run derby, he really does have to find a little bit of a different rhythm to everything that he's doing from an approach perspective because his swing isn't, naturally built for a home run hitting competition. He hits home runs by accident more than it is, like one of those things where he's just trying to have fun in batting practice, seeing how far he can launch them. Home run derbies are made for people like Kyle Schwarber, who just steps in batting practice and wants to uncork on a ball and see how far it can go. That's Kyle Schwarber, and that's what a home run derby is. Not everybody has that approach at the plate, and the guys that the history of the competition has told us these guys that are more of the high contact, high batting average, gap to gap type of hitters. This competition just doesn't necessarily suit them as well as your massive slugger types. So, I'm with Ricky. I think this competition is built with this format built for somebody like Schwarber, and I'd ride with money on him.
I'm looking right now with the odds. Pete Alonso is the favorite to win the Derby at plus 185 odds, and then they got the field. You can take the field, which is minus 250.
Schwarber's minus 250.
No, the field. It's Pete Alonso.
The field. So it's Alonso against the field. Oh, give me the field. How do you not take the field there? I might just throw $100 on the field. Like, give me $100 on somebody not named Pete Alonso to win this thing. I'm with you. It's pretty tight.
And then he says, no, not him. How about the Orioles in Seattle making noise in the AL? We just had the Orioles.
Yeah, how fun is that? How fun is that? And both, but again, we talked about the Orioles. The Orioles might be my favorite team in baseball right now because of the way they've done all of this. Because they took so much heat there was so many people laughing at them over the past few years for what they were doing, how they were going about their business. You know, and even before the year, there was people that were saying how absurd it is and how atrocious it is, and just look how ridiculous, you know, how ridiculously broken the system is, where you've got, you know, a roster like the Orioles. You brought this point up earlier, Daniel, about how, you know, the Orioles roster as a whole is making less money than Max Scherzer is by himself. And you're like, how is it possible for one player to be making more money than an entire team? Yada, 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 and all these things. You're like, oh, the Orioles aren't even trying to win. And no, the Orioles decided that they were going to try a completely different approach to this whole thing, because, you know, if they're not going to sign any big name free agents, you know, you're not going to come in here and bring guys in here and spend a bunch of money on anything like that. So why not, you know, be an outside the box thinker, be a little unconventional, and try to do what they did? And now it's paying dividends for them. But how ridiculous, you know, before the year, when people were like, oh, well, you know, it's ridiculous that Max Scherzer can make $30 million in that deal, or make more money by himself than the whole Orioles are as a team. The Orioles aren't even trying to win. They're not even trying to be competitive. This system's broken. And the Orioles are one of the most competitive teams in the American League all of a sudden, have won all these games in a row, are red hot, and, you know, they're right there in the playoff race. The Mariners, the Mariners are an example of a team that it's been a little bit of everything, right? They've got some good young talent there, but they've worked hard to trade and do all these things to kind of make, you know, bring the right pieces in and make it all fit together, like a beautiful jigsaw puzzle. They got J.P. Crawford, who looked like an absolute bust. Didn't even know, you know, how to love with us. Now he's a Mariners, and one of the baseball. He's not talking to the guy. That's one of the best shortstops. So, you know, then they've got that Rodriguez kid who is just providing all the energy, life, and not like Orioles are.
We just lost Zach right there. Wait for him to come back. I like what the Orioles and Seattle was doing, Rob. I think just like you said, how they do business. The Orioles came in, they drafted
energy. You seem to bring to the table, and you kind of see that, you know, that even you know, be a thing, you know, in pro sports. You know, when you got the young players that are kind of joining a roster full of veterans, and all of a sudden the roster full of veterans, they remember what it's like to be a young kid again. You know, that's just out there having fun, enjoying the game for what it is, and not taking it too seriously. And it kind of brings that side of them out again, you know, where some of them have kind of forgotten about that side of it, and it's all business to them now. And, you know, it becomes fun for them to kind of, you know, think back to when they were that young player coming up through the system and first making noise at the big league level, and how much fun it was. And those things just kind of lift teams at the right times. And, the Mariners haven't made the playoffs since 2001. They've got the longest playoff drought in Major League Baseball right now.
Yeah.
At some point, it's going to end, right? At some point, you know, they're going to make a run to make the playoffs here, and you got a third playoff team this year, wild card team, so why not? American League East is tough, and those guys might beat the shit out of each other by the time we get to the end of the year, to the point that they're going to beat each other so bad that, you know, it's just going to be hard for all three. You would be tough for all three wildcard teams to come from the same division, but that's what the American League East is trying to do. The Blue Jays, the Rays, and the Orioles. You know, I think one of the Blue Jays and the Rays that are a wildcard team, maybe even both of those. You might see two of those two American wildcard teams come from the American League East. But I really, really like where the Mariners are at. Right now, they're playing really good baseball. You got to think they're going to make some type of move at the deadline to try to make themselves better. And they got one
of the best bullpens since the start of June, I believe. It was the Phillies and it was the Mariners. The bullpen's playing ever since they got rid of Sergio Romo, they've been lights out in the bullpen. And then, of course, they got their all-star starter in outfield, Julio Rodriguez, who is only 21, and he made the all-star thing. I think he was a big add-in to this team. The fact that he could come in there
probably
right
the biggest
away.
addition. Really, for them, it's the biggest. It brought. They're the Orioles were trying to design it this way. The Orioles wanted to have a bunch of young kids that were kind of all coming up the system together, get to the big league level at the same time, make a bunch of noise, and kind of have a ton of fun doing it because it's fun to be 23 and be really good and really athletic and just kind of just having a great time in the moment of all that. Whereas the Mariners, it's kind of the good mix and match of all of it. They've been close over the past few years. It's not like this has come out of nowhere, right? They've been close, in the second half, in the past couple of years. And this is kind of that, oh man, this kid, what a lift he's been for everybody. You know what I mean? He's kind of the guy that I think if you're all the other veteran guys on that team, you're looking at and going, yeah, man, I like awesome that you're here. Yeah, man, the clubhouse is so much more fun to be in, and it's so much more fun to be a part of now that you're kind of leading all this. And having a great bullpen always helps, right? But if you're the Mariners, that ballpark, they're a team that if they can go out and if they can add one of these big arms that we talk about, they can go out and add Castillo from the Reds, something like that. They become a really scary team in the American League.
Another point with the Julio Rodriguez, he was able to slot right into that leadoff spot. He's up there. He has 19 home runs, 52 RBIs. He's batting .270. But the big thing with him on top of that is he has 21 stolen bases. So he's getting on base, moving to second or third half the time.
He's a game record.
Yeah. And he's doing it right there from the
start.
You love
game records at the top of your lineup.
Yeah. And that's what I like about him. And they just today got their 13th straight victory. So they've continued that winning streak. They're looking to get another one tomorrow to go into the break on 14. The Orioles lost the other day, but then they won today. So the Orioles are going in pretty hot as well. I think with the Orioles, just like you said, with the Mariners, it was a mixture of veterans that they signed or traded for and that young talent. And then Rob was like, I forgot the GM's name. It is Jerry DiPoto. He used to be with the Arizona Diamondbacks.
Oh, yeah, the Mariners. Yeah,
and Red Sox. So that's the Mariners' name. He said, same with Cleveland, terrific organization. He says, today I have a parlay, Phillies, Boston, Seattle, St. Louis. Oh, to win the divisions. Pays like $6K. Good luck having Boston catch the Yankees.
Yeah, but Boston's got no chance, Rob. Like that parlay's already dead. Boston has no chance. I mean, the Seattle's interesting. You know what? Where Seattle proved to me they're for real. I think Seattle for me, like they were just a hot team for me up until 2 days ago. When they went down 5-1 against the Rangers, and the Rangers had Martin Perez going. And Perez has been really, really lights out for Texas. And they were down 5-1 in that game, and they found a way to come back and win. I went, okay, this is more than just a hot baseball team. This is a team that's got some substance to them. They're not just smoke and mirrors right now. They've got some actual substance to them. And I think that's when they really, for me, like shit like that's for real.
They're hungry.
Like that's special type stuff.
They're hungry. They want to win, which is what you want.
And they're smelling themselves. They believe. They're not just hot. They clearly believe in themselves and what they were able to accomplish. I mean, you got to look out for teams like that in the second half.
Granted, you don't want them to have to come from behind all the time, but right now they're hot. This is what's working for them right now, and they're just going to ride that wave and see if they can continue it after the break. Because right now they're in the driver's seat of their own destiny, you would say. They want to make that playoff run.
What would scare me, what I like about the Mariners more than the Rays is Tampa plays more one-run games than anybody in baseball, I believe. I was looking at that about a week ago, 2 weeks ago. If it's not more than anybody in baseball, they're like the Rays are like top 3 teams in Major League Baseball as far as playing one-run games. And I feel like, if you're a team that's constantly in one-run games, I don't care what your record is in those one-run games. It's just, it's so hard. Like play when you're in that many close games constantly every single night. It's just a wear and a tear on you that at some point it's like, if you play with fire long enough, you're going to get burnt sort of thing. Like that's kind of what that trend is for me. And like Tampa, yeah, they're good. They're one of the, they're one of the best organizations. It's, as far as their approach to things and every year, what they do. They've got their own way of doing things. It's the Tampa way or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, I mean, just what they're doing this year and looking at them this year, I like their pitching. McClanahan, obviously, they got that guy Yarborough that went today, but it's just, it scares me when you're a team that plays in that many one-run games, and it seems to be like every single night. And I believe they went another one today, weren't they? Another one-run game today.
It won the extra innings into the 10th, and then they won 3-2.
And they win 3-2 in the 10th. So you're like, okay, great. Like, yeah, you want another one-run game, but you're playing with fire constantly, and it's one of those things where you go, I actually like it as a sport because I love to bet Tampa Bay plus 1.5. I love to bet the Rays plus 1.5 because my thoughts on that a lot are even if they lose, good chance it'll be a one-run game. Give me them plus 1.5. So it's an angle I like to take with them a lot. Great, you can make me money, but I don't know if it's a recipe for success if you're trying to be a playoff team. Whereas the Mariners are just like, they're doing this winning streak. They've been untouchable. They go down, they're able to come back and win. They're going to throttle you sometimes. They've won big. And then when you've got the best bullpen in baseball, it's kind of like even being in tight games doesn't bother you because your bullpen is that good. Yeah. So I would really like where the Mariners are at. And because you look at that division, the Angels are just, they're such a mess. And the A's are just so bad. The A's stink. If you're looking at that division,
they knew they were gonna stink too. So they didn't.
Yeah, the A's knew they were gonna stink. So if you're looking at that division, the Mariners have a really good chance just to go take care of business in that division and put themselves in a good spot to go make the playoffs. Whereas the Blue Jays and the Rays are it's such a brutal schedule. The Red Sox, the Yankees, and now the Orioles are good too. And it's like no matter who you're playing in your division, it's going to be an absolute dogfight, and that shit is going to, it's going to have an effect on this down the stretch too. The Yankees are the only team that you look at and go, yeah, you're really, really comfortable with where they're at. One of the other 4 probably makes the playoffs, but I don't even know if there's a guarantee of that, just because of how crazy shit can get. But yeah, I would think 2 of the playoff teams come out of the American League East.
Oh yeah, you got the Rays.
Maybe you got
the Rays and the Mariners are right there tied for the 1 spot in the wild card.
What are the 3 wild card spots?
You got the Rays.
Who's the 3 wild card spots in the American League East? Or in the American League, I mean.
Rays, Mariners, and Blue Jays, but they're all within a game of each other. And then you got the Red Sox, who are half a game back of that. You got the Guardians, 2 back. Orioles, 2.5. White Sox, 3.5. And then the Rangers are all the way back there at 6.5. So you got 4, 5, 6, 7 teams that are within 4 games of all the wild card spots. So you got a lot of teams there. So there's going to be a lot of fighting to still go because that's close when you got the 6th team down and only 2.5 back. So you got a lot to go.
You know what's going to be tough for Tampa as well in that situation is out of all the teams in that race, them and the Orioles are the 2 teams that probably aren't going to make any deals at the deadline as far as we know Tampa's not going to go add some big money guy at the deadline. Baltimore might. I don't want to say Baltimore wouldn't, just because if you're Baltimore and you've got so much, obviously, all these assets, and maybe if you look at a guy and you go, hey, he's actually, we could actually get him for by giving up 2 prospects that we're cool with giving up, and he still makes us good enough, and it's not breaking the bank enough where, okay, why not take that chance? Because it could win you the few extra games down the stretch that you need to in order to go make the playoffs. Say they want to go get a Luis Castillo to get themselves a legit top of the rotation arm, type of thing. But I still don't think that they would be likely to do that. Whereas the Blue Jays, the Red Sox, teams like that, even the Mariners, all three of those teams are looking to get better at the deadline. They're going to look to do, whatever they can to bring in whatever they feel like they need to bring in to make their team better in the areas that it needs to be. The Mariners, obviously, bullpen seems taken care of. Okay, we can focus on starting pitching. The Mariners already have pretty good starting pitching. If they could add like a legit, one of these legit top of the rotation guys that we're talking about being on the market, like a Castillo that we keep bringing up, that they become really, really scary to play. Red Sox and Blue Jays are going to make a move just because they feel like they have to, because they're competing with each other for a playoff spot. So you can't let one of them make a move and you don't make a move, right? So if one of them makes a move, the other one makes a move just because the other one did. So it's like a cat and mouse game between those two. They're going to sit there and play that game of chess with each other because they can't let, they're so close to each other in the standings there. They can't afford that. The Red Sox can't afford to let Toronto get a little bit better. And Toronto can't afford to let Boston get a little bit better. So they're both going to try to one-up each other there at the deadline. It's a tough game to have to try to play. It really is. Just because of all this that we're talking about, I love Seattle and where they're at, their positioning in the wild card. And as far as we're talking about which of those teams, of those teams, who do you think has the better chance to pull away and kind of create some space and become a little bit more comfortable with their situation in the second half? I would say it's Seattle.
Yeah, without the play right now, 13 straight wins, how can you go against them? I would say maybe a team that's been up there a little bit more, like maybe Toronto, but like I can't go against Seattle if they haven't lost in 13 games.
And Toronto is so hot and cold.
Yeah, you're going to ride the hot hand right now while you can, because Seattle before that was so unknown. You didn't know what to expect from them, and then they got hot right now. So they could go on, come back from this hot streak, and this break might kill that streak. Being out for 4 or 5 days,
they're hot right now, and these are the time. I mean, like if this was August, I'd be like, oh, look out for them, because now they're carrying it into September. But I just think for me, like, yeah, they've got the hot streak like now. That's got them into contention here. But when you look at it, just big picture, and say the second half of the season here, how is the second half of the season playing out? It would be one of those things where I even look at it then and I say, I just like big picture how all of this matches up for Seattle on paper. Forget about the 13-game winning streak. I just like how it all matches up for them on paper right now. Baltimore or Seattle, that would be so dumb. Like, first of all, Baltimore would literally have given up everything they just worked for over the past 5 years of sucking for one guy that's not going to win you everything by himself. And Seattle, it would make Seattle relevant. You know what I mean? I guess if you're Seattle, you're like, well, look at this. We've got a young kid who's one of the faces of baseball. Look at us all of a sudden. It's like we live in your Griffey days. Yeah. But still, I don't know if that's worth it for you if you're Seattle. I've always said if Seattle wanted to, they could pay enough money to be one of the top organizations in baseball as far as a payroll perspective goes. I mean, if you go look at Seattle and the economy out there, right? I mean, it's all big tech shit, right? It's not like that's a broke-ass community. It's fucking Seattle. Like, you can afford to spend money out there if you want to. You just gotta want to. Baltimore legitimately can't spend like those other organizations. They just can't. Have you been to Baltimore? If you have, you don't want to go back. So it's like one of those things where you're just like, what are they going to do? I mean, they're never going to be in a position to have a payroll that's in the top 10 in baseball. Just not going to be a thing. The Mariners could, and the Mariners have in the past. But what sense does that make for them? And who are they? What are they going to do? They already got a young stud outfielder. They got Julio Rodriguez. He's going to be their guy. That's Juan Soto for them in a few years, right? They're going to be, hey, dude, what do you? 15 years, $400 million. Whatever we got to do to keep you here. Let's talk. Let's make it happen.
Yeah, but before we get going to the next, of course, the next topic, which is Jalen Hurts struggles, how about you tell everybody about the next sponsor that we have?
Well, the next sponsor, as you guys can tell, I'm not much of like a manscaping person in any way, shape, or form, but some of you guys are, and that's fine. And if you are, you can get 20% off plus the free shipping with the code A2D at manscaped.com. That's 20% off plus free shipping with the code A2D at manscaped.com. Time to throw out your old hygiene habits and upgrade your life. If you say so. Daniel, you seem to be a guy that, like, your beard's well trimmed and it seems like it's, it's well groomed, and you like to make sure it's always looking good at all times. Yeah. Have you checked out this Manscaped package?
Yes, I have checked it out. I do like the trimmer. They got several things to use from, but one of the key things that I use, especially with the hot weather, it gets very humid, especially probably does down where you are. But the ball sense that they have there, you can put it on right there. It keeps you from chafing and keeps everything from going crazy down there in the big heated weather. So definitely check out.
Oh, is that what it does?
Yeah.
I usually only worry about that, when, like, you want to keep it well groomed down there so that, like the wifey doesn't get mad at you, about it being all over the place. But with her being pregnant, there's not much action of any kind going on over here right now. So I don't really think I've got anything to worry about. Hey, that old joke about, like, once you get married, like, and have kids, it's like you have kids and all of a sudden all this, whatever sex you were having in your relationship, you're no longer having it. I mean, I don't even have a kid here yet, and it seems like, the sex that we were having, we're no longer having. So I don't know. I mean, but Jesus, not good, Stephen. Or Daniel. I called you Stephen. Not good, Daniel. See? We miss you, Stephen. We miss you.
Your job was complete, so you're not needed for anything anymore.
I guess so. That's what it is. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Mission accomplished. So, now, like, it's almost, there's only so much attention to go around, and, the baby needs most of it. So,
but let's transition to the next topic. I'll bring this comment up from earlier, basically telling what we're talking about. What's your guys' opinion about Derek Gunn's sources about Hurts OTAs and what AJ Brown has said?
To anybody that doesn't understand it because they're an outsider, like, Derek Gunn's been a part of the Philly media forever, and Derek Gunn is not one of those guys. And I want to pretenses for saying I'm not, like, I'll get into my opinion. I've made my opinions clear on Jalen Hurts quite a bit over the show, throughout the past year or so. But I'll get into how I necessarily feel about it in 1 second. But I'll say, as far as the Derek Gunn thing goes, this coming from Derek Gunn makes me really feel as if, they're concerned about what Jalen is and whether or not, he's got it, whether he's going to be the franchise guy or whether they're going to have to upgrade the position after this year, because Derek Gunn's a guy that he's not clickbait. He's not just putting shit out there just because it seems like it's a slow news time and we want to, he wants to get some clicks or some attention to his story. That's not Derek Gunn. It never has been. If Derek Gunn's reporting it, it's got some substance to it. And I would definitely, the idea that, what do you think of it? Well, what's AJ Brown going to do? I mean, AJ Brown was brought into this team for, one of the reasons being he's a number one receiver in this league, and he's a big time playmaker, and you need that on your offense. But two, he's a guy that he's a winner, leadership. He seems like that type of guy that you want in your locker room. Just a good leadership type guy that is always going to say the right things and never kind of create. He's never going to take a situation and make it worse by saying the wrong thing. So, AJ Brown came out and defended Jalen Hurts. Well, they've been working out together all off season. What's AJ Brown going to do? Come out and say, I'm with Derek. He's ass cheeks, and I'm looking forward to my future here, but I know that we're going to have to upgrade at the quarterback position, or else it's not going to be any good. Like, what the hell is he going to say? Plus, he played with Ryan Tannehill, so he probably does think Jalen Hurts. He's like, this guy's way better than what I was playing with in Tennessee. Well, that was, Jesus, what were you playing with in Tennessee? Like, not much. Ryan Tannehill, he's got the Jalen Hurts disease too. He can run. He's got his legs that can help him. He's going to put up some. Offensively, you'll move. You'll move the ball. You'll put up yards. It's not going to look ugly necessarily or ever look bad, but you're just like, this guy's limited in what he can do from a passing perspective, and it's going to eventually hold us back once you get to a deep enough part of the season. And
and he's getting paid right now.
It's kind of the same thing that we're thinking about Jalen is what we've said about Ryan Tannehill his whole career.
Yeah, and then he's getting paid right now, whereas Hurts is only making $750,000. So there's a lot of wiggle room and use from Hurts. He's a younger too. He's only, I think, 23, 24. We know this year is his make it or break it year, and so I think whatever he's happening now, it is what it is. We know he's going to come in as the starter. We know that he has to get acclimated to these new weapons. Like, I'm just looking at it just like, okay, he's struggling now, or if he's not, I'm waiting until he actually gets into games to see how he is then, because I'm like, practice is practice. That's one thing, but then you get into the game, you could wind up being better. I'm not worried about it because it's just like I said, the only thing that matters is once they get into gameplay, and then that's what matters when you look at how he's doing. Here
would be my concern, I guess, with it. I guess if we're just talking about big picture, right? I mean, I meant, Derek Gunn for me, nothing comes of this for you to report this if you're Derek Gunn, unless like this is actually what you've heard, right? So I don't think Derek Gunn's making this up. I definitely think this is what he's heard from his sources within the building. So then the other side of that would be not necessarily, I'm with you about, Jalen when he gets into the games and all that. That's not, I think, what the point's being tried to make here with Derek Gunn and with this report, as much as it's the report being all the same things that we've worried about with Jalen since he entered the league. The not being able to read a defense, not being able to get any better at that side of, at that aspect of it, as far as understanding how to read the defense, what the defense is showing you, what they're doing, you being able to figure it out pre-snap and then make the right read off of that and make the right decision because of that. All those things, it seems to be what Derek Gunn's reporting is that those things that, you were hoping now 3 years into your career would have gotten better, the Eagles are still seeing those same rookie mistakes that you saw in year one when it comes to him not being able to figure out, pre-snap, hey, the defense is showing you this. You need to be able to read it, know it, identify it, and, adjust off of that. And if that's still an issue and we're now going into year 3, that's going to be an issue going into year 4 and into year 5. And for the rest of his career, he's never going to figure that side of it out. So then the question becomes, okay, you've had quarterbacks who haven't necessarily, you don't have to be Peyton Manning at the line of scrimmage to win in this league. We know that. Okay, so is there a happy medium here? Can Jalen find that happy medium where we know he's never going to be that guy that's going to come up to the line of scrimmage and maybe identify things the way the elite quarterbacks that can do that are, but is there enough to Jalen's game to be able to make up for that? And maybe there is, but there's clearly a lot of concern for me when I'm reading this report and saying, connect the dots, the writing on the wall, put it all together. What's it telling you? It's telling me there's definitely this idea that, all those concerns about, when the Tampa Bay coaching staff was on the sideline during the playoffs last year saying, hey, he can't read a defense, keep mixing up your looks, keep switching it around, he can't read what's going on. It's telling me that, this whole offseason of work that he put in with all the different guys that we heard he was working with and all these different things, none of it has helped him get over that hump of, that being the biggest flaw in his game, which, is something you would have liked to see him get over at this point. Now, that doesn't mean he can't be successful, right? I want to make those things clear. But for me, it's a huge concern if we're still talking about this idea of him not being able to identify a defense in the way you need him to. And then you've got the other report we heard from Tiki Barber, who came out. Now, Tiki, I'm a little bit less I'd be like, it's Tiki, take it with a grain of salt because Tiki's a fucking piece of shit. But, he's saying that, he's had multiple NFL, front office people tell him the guy's got a noodle arm, NFL scout, talent evaluator guys tell him the guy's got a noodle arm. It just is what it is. It's a noodle arm. For the NFL level, he's got a noodle arm. Well, if you've got a noodle arm and you can't read a defense, I'm not betting money on you becoming my franchise quarterback. But at this point, all I can do is hope that all of this stuff and all the negatives that we hear and all the things that we're concerned about, he takes it and goes, hey, stick it up your ass. I'm going to be a great player in this league. I'm the franchise quarterback. I'm a winner. Let's go win a Super Bowl. And, as an Eagles fan, that's how I've got to look at it, and that's what I've got to root for.
And to my point, they haven't even started training camp yet. So how much can we bank on this information when they're not even going?
Well, you can. Those are things that aren't on the field, right, Daniel? Like those are things that they could sit in the meeting room with Jalen Hurts this offseason. You could sit in the meeting room watching film and looking at all these things and be able to pick it up as a coaching staff of whether or not Jalen has gotten any better at identifying certain things like that. So I feel like that, again, that's where I feel like this report's coming from. It's, hey, here we are, year 3, and the same issues that we're having while studying film in year 1 are still the same issues we're having now. He didn't identify that, while we saw it on film. He couldn't tell. Oh, boom, pointed out, oh, good, look at this. We're making progress. That was something he wasn't seeing on film last year. Now he's seeing it and identifying it, and that's a start. If you could see it on film in the meeting room throughout the week, in preparation, it becomes much easier now to go out to the field and be able to see it at the line of scrimmage. And that's what I'm taking from it.
And then on top of that, everybody knew what's going to happen going into this year. They knew it's make it or break it for him. Like I said, we got the extra first round pick from the Saints, which gives us 2 for next year, set us up into possibly getting a better quarterback if we have to. We've set up that way, so it's like, just wait and see what happens. So, like, why do we keep talking about this when it's either he's going to improve and we're in defenses or he's not? It's either one or the other. He's not going to be in between, in my opinion. It's either he's going to help us get back to the playoffs or we're not going to get to the playoffs, and then we're going to move on from him. It's one or the other. I don't think there's a situation where we miss the playoffs and he plays bad or mediocre and then we keep him. I don't think that happens. So it's like, to me, it's like,
no, okay,
let's just stop talking about the same thing that keeps getting brought up and see what happens. Because at the end of the day, that's the only thing
but you're smarter than that.
Yeah. Well, I know.
I mean,
I know. It's just, to me, it's just the dumb media making something out of nothing because we already know what the situation is. It's not like it's anything new. We know what the situation is. Just let it happen. Let it develop. It's either going to be good or it's either going to be bad when it comes to Jalen Hurts. It's going to play great, and we'll likely re-sign him, and we can use his 2 draft picks on other needs. Or he's going to play bad, and we have to use those to trade up to get a really good quarterback, and that's what happens. And then we'll go start from scratch with that quarterback, and then we draft.
Well, realistically speaking, if you're making that decision to move on at the end of the year, you might even be able to add another first round pick to the conversation because you're probably looking to trade Jalen at that point.
Yeah.
And if you're trying to get up to get your top pick, say we want the top pick, or we want to make sure we get our top pick of quarterback. You trade your 2 first round picks, aim Jalen to whoever you need to try to sneak up to 3, 2, 4, maybe even 1, whatever you got to do. If you're looking to say, hey, we want to move up from
right now, this is
11 to 3, that's how you do it.
Yeah, and right now this is going to be a really good quarterback draft class in general too. So you have a good amount of guys to choose from. So you want to get as far to the top of the draft as possible.
I mean, it's tough because now, I mean, I don't know if it's tough. I mean, what's funny to me about it is you're in a position, the rest of your roster is almost so good right now that like it's like the idea like Jalen, like, yeah, I mean, if he doesn't work out, you're almost looking to draft a guy. It's like how the Steelers went and drafted Kenny Pickett this year. They're not looking to draft Kenny Pickett so they can go win 5 games and develop Kenny Pickett. They drafted Kenny Pickett thinking, hey, we can still be a playoff team with this guy. He's going to step in with all the other things that we've got here with this team and how good this team is. And, we shouldn't miss a beat. And that's the position you've got to be in now with the Eagles is all the money's tied up in other areas. You've got a really good team. You need to go draft a stud young quarterback that's on a rookie contract that's going to be good enough to go win you football games and have you make a deep playoff run. But I think in how he's so smart, he sees the way the league develops. The Bengals just became the blueprint for that a year ago. You draft Joe Burrow. You get him in year 2. He's still really cheap or cheap enough where it's, not all your money's tied into the quarterback position. And they've got all this talent in all these other areas where they were a good enough team to go along with a great quarterback who's not killing their fucking, their payroll. And that's how you make your deep runs, to the playoffs. The Rams sold out and went out and they went all in to get their Super Bowl, and they did. And now that, if they don't win another one, it's okay. They got one. But they would like this, they would like to get another one here. But that was what they made that decision of. This is our window. We've got to get one now. Now, as soon as that window closes, the Rams are fucked for a few years. We both know they're fucked for quite a while because they don't have any first-round picks. But
they're playing with house money right now because they're
playing with house money right now. Exactly. Yeah. If you're the Eagles, you're kind of looking more at the Bengals blueprint, right? You're looking at that blueprint of really good young roster, all this talent in place. Now you just need that young stud quarterback to tie it all together. Because you can't go out. It's not like you're going to be able to go out, when we talk about, what about one of the, Matthew Stafford started this whole thing where these quarterbacks, they get traded every offseason. Yeah, well, you're not in a position to go trade for Deshaun Watson or Matthew Stafford and pay a quarterback $200 million to come play for you. That won't be able to happen. So you really are going to have to, whatever decision you make to go in the draft, to go draft one of those guys, you better nail it. Like, you need to, knock it out of the park. Because you really don't have any other options, right? I mean, it's got to be, we decided to move on from Jalen because this young quarterback that we're drafting is going to be, the missing piece, the final piece to this puzzle, right? Otherwise you would have just been better off sticking with Jalen.
And maybe we might get lucky too, where we get a situation where maybe the Saints are a team that they don't do well, and we have their picks, so maybe they fall into like that top 5 or top 10, and then it makes the wiggle room of trading up a little bit easier for us if we have to move on from Jalen Hurts.
It can help, sure.
I look at it like whatever works for us best at the end of the year. I'm hoping he pans out. I'm hoping they make the playoffs because we have the team to do it. I think that even if he isn't at his best, that maybe the team can carry him a little bit to where they can succeed regardless of how he's reading defenses or not. But I want to see him get to that next level, and maybe the team helps it. Maybe he just needs to go in to training camp and see things rather than watching film. Like I said, watching film is one thing. Sometimes some guys don't do it well that way.
I agree with that sentiment.
At the eye where they're actually doing it and making mistakes and then getting corrected that way. And then
some guys aren't good note takers, right? Like in school, some of us were good note takers. Some of us were good at organizing our notes and then highlighting everything and knowing what we wanted to focus on, the study for the test, and then coming in and taking the test just off of all that information you had studied throughout the week. And then other people are, that's not really them. The note taking and all that, it doesn't really help us when it comes to a studying perspective. I do think there could be something to that with certain players, being that they're just more of, they go out there and they feel it, and it's you kind of just, they learn by being thrown into the fire and things like that. But still, I mean, Jalen's a smart kid. Like, that's why I look at that and I'm like, I don't necessarily see Jalen as one of those kids. He seems like he's the complete opposite. Jalen seems like the type of kid that was like the heavy note taker in school and understood how to organize all that and highlight the shit out of it. I wasn't that way. I was a no notes guy, a lot like Tom. You know what I mean? I had to have different ways of mentally being able to memorize things for tests and things like that. I couldn't just go take a bunch of notes and organize it throughout the week and then have it all ready to go for me. But yeah, I mean, there's certain guys that are like that, sure. But for me, the guys that do that the best and kind of get away with that the best are the guys that are like, they're your freaks of nature when it comes to physical ability. Like you hear Brett Favre tell the story now about early in his career, and they kept telling him, "Oh, nickel, they got the nickel defense out there." He's like, "Okay, cool, like whatever, nickel defense." And he finally went to what's his name, the backup quarterback, not the Hasselbacks, but Detmer, one of the Detmer brothers, I believe it was. Yeah. And he asked one of them, he's like, like, what does that mean, nickel? Like when they talk about nickel, like what is that? He's like, are you serious? He's like, yeah, like what does nickel mean? And he's like, it just means they take a linebacker off the field and they put a fifth defensive back out there. So now you got 5 defensive backs. It's a nickel defense. And Favre's like, oh, what? Like, that's it? Like, who cares? Well, because if you're Brett Favre, you don't care. You're like, okay, like they can put 8 defensive backs on the field. I'm a gunslinger. I've got an arm that can fit a ball into any window. I'm not worried about it, Jalen Hurts has to worry about it because if your timing's just a little bit off, that ball's not fitting in that window, and it's the defense is going to make a play on it. So that's why I become concerned with something like Michael Vick was a guy for me that could get away with that. Like you asked Michael Vick, and he talked about early in his career not studying film, not being disciplined with any of that. And it wasn't until he got to Philly and Andy Reid really made him the guy that was able to kind of understand the film room and the study and the preparation side of it, and then combine that with your physical ability on the field, and you get MVP-like results. But Michael Vick was able to get away with not being the most prepared player and not understanding the studying of the film and the reading of defenses and things like that, because when you're that much of a freak of nature like Michael Vick was, you can get away with things like that. But Jalen's not that guy for me, so that's why it concerns me. But like you said, to your point, it is what it is, right? Like at this point, it is what it is.
And he could come out there. He could come out there because he might get better looks. Because when you look at last year, you got a guy like Devontae Smith. He was a rookie. He was getting double, triple team because he was like realistically the only guy catching the ball like consistently. But now you have a guy, you put him on the other side, AJ Brown, Pro Bowl player. He's going to make life easier, or he should make life easier for Hurts, where maybe instead of Smith getting doubled or triple team, now both wide receivers are only getting single covered. And maybe a lot of the time, A.J. Brown's going to see the safety go over top of him because he's that Pro Bowl top 10 talent, and it's going to leave Devontae Smith open. So there, it's going to rely on Jalen Hurts to see that he's open and get the ball to him to the outside. And he has that repertoire with Devontae Smith already. So he should be able to do that and get the job done with the better options he's going to have now, because you got them on the outside, you got Goddard on the inside, you got the 3 running backs. He has everything at his disposal and a good line that they added to on top of that. So it's like, it's up to him. So just like you said, that's why I'm just going to let his play do the talking. I'm not going to be like, oh, there's rumors of him in the meeting room not understanding how to read coverages. I'm like, I want to see what he does when he's on the line, where he's doing it at training camp or in games. That's where it matters for me. Like, I'm going to wait until then.
Yeah, well, I mean, we did have six OTA dates, throughout the spring and into the early summer here, where I'm sure that was part of this too. I'm sure it wasn't only just meeting room and film room stuff and all that, but yeah, here's what I don't like about the one thing I don't like about what you just said is having all this around him. Great. So are we trying to hide Jalen Hurts, or are we trying to find out exactly what he is? Because I can't hide him and try to just hide all of his flaws and say, well, we can hide your flaws because we've got all of we've got all this stuff around you now to make it easier to hide those flaws. Well, I'm trying to figure out what the fuck you are and what the fuck you're not. I can't just try to hide your flaws because, that's what I've got to do to win football games. I got to expose the kid. It is what it is. I got to let you go out there and throw you into the fire and, let you figure it out, and you either figure it out or you don't. But this idea that, oh, well, we got A.J. Brown and Devontae and Goddard and all these. I know. So we're going to have him game manage the game. So he does, as long as he's not hurting us, we don't need him to go out there and put the team on his back and win us games as long as he's not hurting us. Well, okay, but that's not a franchise quarterback either. And at some point, I need to see him go, hey, boys, jump on my back. I got this today. And, it doesn't matter how much talent you got around you. All the great quarterbacks, they have, they do that, It doesn't matter, if you're throwing the Hall of Famers or you're throwing the Joe Schmoes, Peyton Manning had 2 Hall of Famers he was throwing to. There was still plenty of times Peyton Manning put a team on his back and went, hey, boys, I got this. It's okay. To the rescue. I've got it. This is why I get paid the buck. So it's like, yeah, I'm glad he has all these weapons. I always want my quarterback to have as many weapons as possible. I don't care how good or bad they are. I want my team to have offensive playmakers. But to me, it's almost like it becomes easy to say, oh, well, we're winning. Well, yeah, great. You can win in a lot of different ways, and we've got a ton of talent. That means that we should be able to win. But just like the Niners were winning, it's you knew that Jimmy Garoppolo wasn't good enough, and like the reason the Niners were winning wasn't because Jimmy Garoppolo was winning them football games. It was just because he was doing just enough to not lose them football games where everything else about that team was so good. As long as Jimmy Garoppolo didn't, beat them, they were going to have a good chance to win the game at the end. We don't need you to win the game for us, Jimmy. Just don't lose it for us. And I don't want Jalen to be in a position where we're asking him, hey, we don't need you to go win it. Just don't lose it. Well, that's how I end up with Kirk Cousins. Like, you know what I'm saying? And, like, Kirk Cousins puts up sexy numbers, I guess, but he's got one career playoff win. And, like, if you're the Vikings, Alan's a Vikings fan. I wish Alan was here right now because Alan would kind of tell you where I'm coming from. It's not that you hate Kirk Cousins as your quarterback, but you just kind of accept it every single year, the fact that, yeah, we'll have a chance to be a playoff team, but like a Super Bowl is a pipe dream when a guy like Kirk Cousins is your quarterback. And I don't want to be that either. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like that, that's the position you maybe end up in if you commit to Jalen long term.
I feel kind of bad for him, though, because in Minnesota, he really hasn't been the problem. That defense has been the problem there because they've gotten worse and worse. Even with all that talent that they were able to bring in last year, they had 13 draft picks. This year they had quite a few, but their offense has been fine. It's been their defense that has been carrying their side of the load. So it's like you could say Kirk Cousins only has been to playoffs once or twice, but it's like he's doing what he has to do. He's getting paid that throw touchdowns.
He beats bad football teams, but there's a reason why he's like 1-15 in his career on Monday Night Football. Because when you play marquee teams in primetime games, trust me, his defense isn't the reason why he's 1-15 in Monday Night Football games. You know what I'm saying? Like that's not the defense. That's because every time you watch Kirk Cousins,
because I've seen that.
How many times do you watch Kirk Cousins on Monday Night Football? How many times you go watch Kirk Cousins on Monday Night Football, and at that half, he's like 9 of 17 for 62 yards and 0 touchdowns. And you're like, well, 9 of 17 for 62 yards in the first half of the Monday night game isn't winning me diddly shit, and I don't care what the defense is doing. I need you to ball out in prime time. He doesn't do that. And, again, Kirk Cousins is, has he had a bad career? No, he's been a good quarterback for a long time, but it just has gotten to a point with Kirk where you know what he is, and it is what it is with him. And, you kind of feel like he's just filling space for them at that position until they feel like they're in a better position organizationally to really go try to swing for a grand slam at the quarterback position and bring in a guy that can really get you over the hump. It's like Andy Dalton in Cincinnati for all those years. Was Andy Dalton a bad quarterback? No, but you probably weren't going to ever win anything with him. Joe Burrow steps in, and within 2 years, you go to a Super Bowl. I mean, it's not a coincidence. You know what I'm saying?
No, there was more than just Joe Burrow. They added a lot to that team. And then,
sure, they built, but Andy Dalton had plenty. Andy Dalton had plenty of years with really, really good rosters to go win football games, and was just at. I mean, it's not like those Bengals teams were bad when he was the quarterback. Especially early on in his career.
Well, one year that they were really good, he got hurt going right into the playoffs. Kind of like the Derek Carr effect. He got hurt.
That becomes part of it. But that all becomes part of it.
Yeah.
That all becomes part of it.
But I wouldn't go and say, took 2 years after Joe Burrow, because Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, you already had, what's his name? You had 3 wide receivers. You have Joe Mixon. It was a big build-up to making that team good. It wasn't just
and during that whole big build-up, though, Dalton was there through the whole, and Dalton was the quarterback, and he was also the quarterback for legitimate playoff teams earlier in his career when those were really, really good rosters. It wasn't like they weren't they were top to bottom offensively and defensively very, very solid, and it was more Dalton that was holding them back at times than it was anything else. Another example of them needing to go into a primetime game and win a game against Pittsburgh on Monday Night Football, and you just knew before the game even started, Andy Dalton's not beating the Steelers on Monday Night Football with a playoff spot on the line. It's just not happening. And it wouldn't happen. How is it that simple to sit there and go, yeah, guess what's not going to happen tonight? The Bengals aren't going to beat the Steelers on Monday Night Football with a playoff spot on the line because it's just not going to happen. Why do you have the confidence it wasn't going to happen? Because you knew Andy Dalton wasn't going to ball out enough to go win them that football game.
Yeah, but like I said, there's more to that. Like their defense was bad, and it goes just right into Minnesota. Like you said with Minnesota with Kirk Cousins, how many times did they play bad on primetime? How many times did they give up a lot of their good players? They gave up both of their quarters. And then you expected the team to compete and make the playoffs when you give the two corners.
Yeah,
and guess what? On top of that, those two corners go to Cincinnati and help them go to.
But this is where you lose me. This is where you lose me, though. Like some guys, we've got enough of a track record with some guys. Like Kirk Cousins, like his whole career has been this. He's a big game flopper. Like that's what the guy is. Like. Some guys, like we have enough evidence to know that these are what these guys are for their careers, and it's stupid to sit there and continue to make excuses for guys. You're either a stud or you're not. You're either a pimp or you're not. You can't tell me Joe Burrow walking into that Cincinnati Bengals locker room like he's not the second coming of Joe Namath. It didn't fucking help change the culture around in that building and make them think, yo, with this dude at quarterback, the sky's the limit. We could go do anything. This is Joe Tip over here.
And guess what? I'll throw a name out there just to go combat that. Deshaun Watson, right before the whole thing and before he missed the year. The sky's the limit for Deshaun Watson. He's a top 5 talent, but how many playoff games has he won?
It's not. I'm not even just talking about playoff games, Daniel. It's. You're talking about primetime games. Games against career opponents.
I'm pretty sure he doesn't have a great primetime record because there's years where he didn't win.
But has he balled out in primetime games? Deshaun Watson won the Texans a playoff game by himself 2 years ago. The final year, the final year that he played before his suspension. There was the playoff game where he had that big fucking run on like third down. He ran for like 47 yards and got them down inside the 10-yard line. That led to the game-winning field goal or the game-winning touchdown or whatever. He put them on his back in the second half of that game and won them that football game. And it was like clear with your own eyes when you watched it. And then his teammates acknowledged it after the game. They're like, it's to have Deshaun at quarterback is just special. He can do special things that a lot of guys can't. And he was special today. He won us that football game. So like Watson's at least had like. He's had his coming out party. He's had his moments in big time primetime games where you went.
But he's also lost. He's also lost more in primetime than he's won. Whereas
I don't care about losing and winning as much as I care about how you perform in those primetime games. How did you perform?
And Kirk Cousins has performed well.
Kirk Cousins has not performed in primetime games. That's why he's winning 15.
Go look at his numbers. You
go look at his numbers, Daniel. I look at his numbers. I've looked at his numbers. They're garbage. I've looked at his numbers.
The proof is in the pudding. You can't use one thing for one guy.
Yeah, the proof is in the pudding. He sucks in primetime games.
You can't use one factor against one guy, but then go and use the same factor against another.
I'm using the same. I'm not. I'm being consistent with it, Daniel. I'm being consistent with it. One guy balls out in primetime games and one guy doesn't. It's not about the. It's not about the. It's about whether or not how you played in those performances. And no, the proof is in the pudding with Kirk Cousins. He doesn't play well in primetime. He does not play well in primetime. He does not play well.
Bring that up right now because I think that's bullshit right there.
How about I'll bring Alan on right now, and we can get Alan, the Vikings fan, that's watched every snap that Kirk Cousins has taken since he's been a Viking, and he's been on this show before, and he's pointed this out to you. That he's not good.
And I'm pretty sure he'll point out how horrible that Minnesota defense is and how they've cost them.
He'll point out that Kirk Cousins does not play well enough against good opponents for them to be worth a damn. That's what he'll point out to you. He's done it on this show multiple times in the past.
I literally just watched this past season a primetime game against the Green Bay Packers where they had to score 40-plus points to beat Aaron Rodgers, and it was because of Kirk Cousins. It wasn't because of the defense. The defense gave up 30-plus points, and then Kirk Cousins had to score and had to have a great game to overcome.
Here's another guy that's a big game flopper. You want to defend this guy too? Dak Prescott's a big game flopper as well. Never plays well in primetime. Always is fucking average at best whenever he's in a big-time primetime game of any kind. Yet the dude fucking sits there and destroys fucking garbage football teams and average football teams, and they fucking love the shit out of him in Dallas because he's always got him right there, in playoff contention. But anytime it comes to playing in a big fucking primetime game of any kind, he stinks. They're down 20 points, and the next thing you know, he's fucking getting garbage time stats in the third and fourth quarter of football games. They might make it a 10-point game and tease everybody to make them think they're going to make it close, and then they lose. Or, they pull something out of their ass every once in a while and they'll win. But it's always Dak sucking in the first half of those big-time football games, and then in the second half, while defenses are playing soft as shit in the secondary, he's trying to do everything he can to bring them back as he just slings it around the field. And sometimes he'll put up big numbers, but it's not because he actually played well. You watch the game start to finish, and you realize the only reason he put up big numbers is because they were down 17 points in the second half. The defense is playing a prevent look, and he's cutting everybody up underneath, and they're making a lot of completions and pushing the ball down the field. But that's different than playing well. That's different than playing well. Dak doesn't put the Cowboys on his back at any point when it comes to trying to carry them in primetime football games. That's the difference between Dak and the really elite quarterbacks in this league.
So where do you
the same issue that all these guys that we've just talked about have? They're all in the same conversation. That's not that they're bad quarterbacks. They just don't play well in prime time. They don't play well enough.
Okay. We're going to agree to disagree on this because I don't think has been the issue in Minnesota, and it's clear as day that the defense is the issue there.
How much longer does the guy got to play with how many different organizations before people realize Kirk Cousins isn't good enough to win me anything in this league?
He's already in his second organization, and he's gone to the playoffs with both organizations.
And he doesn't. Sneaking into the playoffs doesn't do me diddly fucking shit. Case Keenum took the same exact football team deeper in the playoffs than Kirk Cousins did.
And it's just like the excuse I'm telling you. You can't say one thing about one guy, but then use an exactly different thing to pat.
I'm not saying I'm not saying anything different about anybody. I haven't said anything different outside of the fact that how guys play.
You just said with Deshaun Watson, who hasn't done any better.
Deshaun Watson actually took them to the fucking – Deshaun Watson put that team on his back in a playoff game and won it by himself. Kirk Cousins has never put a team on his back to win a fucking meaningful game of any kind. The Texans don't have a good defense either. The Texans had dog shit literally around Deshaun Watson, like on the defensive side. Literally fucking J.J. Watt was a shell of himself. That defense was fucking garbage, and it was Deshaun Watson winning them football games by him fucking self.
So it's okay for you to use that as an excuse, but it's not okay for me to say that Minnesota defense is bad, which is worse.
It's not about the defense being bad. It's the fact that Cousins isn't good enough to make up for it. Watson did. Watson, just like quarterbacks that are actual elite quarterbacks, make up for that. They're good enough to put a team on their back and win football games.
But he's not because he's only been in the league. But he's not because he's only been in the league 4 or 5 years, and he's only made the playoffs once or twice. And then in the past 2 years, he's only won 4 games and 5 games.
And in that entire stretch of what we're talking about, Deshaun Watson would literally win football games by himself. How many Texans games did you watch and go, if Deshaun Watson wasn't the quarterback, like the Texans wouldn't have a single point right now? Watson would literally win games by himself.
Hell, they just won, 6 or 7 games without him. They had Davis Webb there, and they improved. So how can you tell me that he's the only one winning them games?
The last year that Deshaun Watson was the starter, he took them to the playoffs and literally won them a game by himself.
No, he didn't.
That was him.
No, he won only 5 games that year.
What was the year they went to the playoffs? He won the game by himself. The year before that?
That was, I think, 2 or 3 years ago against Buffalo, and in that game.
Yeah, you remember the game I'm talking about where he had the fucking insane run at the end of it, and like the fourth quarter of that game, it was the Deshaun Watson show. Like nobody else was even on the field for Houston. It seemed like he was just doing things, pulling it out of his ass to win them that football game. Elite quarterbacks make the difference. They make up for your flaws in other areas. Even the Bengals last year, it wasn't like Burrow made up for a lot of what their flaws were. Like that offensive line was not strong. The defense was good at times, but it wasn't like they were, like a top 5 defense in football. It was Joe Burrow that was the heart and soul of everything that they were doing. I can't believe I've got you on here defending Kirk Cousins. Oh my God. This
Well,
is the
it's
hill
not-
you've chosen to
it's
die
the-
on tonight, Daniel?
Well, I'm not dying because I'm winning the argument right now, but it's not the
You're
fact
not
that I'm.
winning shit. If you want to defend, if you want to defend,
you keep dancing
if you
around
want
in
to defend
circles
Kirk
with no
Cousins, you're
point.
not winning an argument, bro. You're trying to sit here and paint a picture that Kirk Cousins is how I'm trying to play.
So in the past 2 years, the Texans in 2020, his last year, he went 4-12. That is Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, that was the disaster year, right? What was the year before that?
They went 10-6 and 11-5. So they had 2 years where they made the playoffs. But then the year before that, in 2017, they went 4-12. So that's only 2 years of winning.
2017 was his first year. 2017 was his first year. He was drafted in 2017, right? Yeah.
He was drafted
2017, he was a rookie.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2017, he was a rookie. 2018, 2019, they make the playoffs with a head coach that was garbage, with a defense that was getting worse. But he was the guy that was balling out on that team. Him and DeAndre Hopkins made that team go.
There's more
that
to
organization
it than
is a
that,
mess,
and
and
you know
Deshaun Watson
it.
and Deshaun Watson in them football games by himself.
Exactly. This is just like I'm telling you, but you're making an excuse for.
No,
him,
you're trying to
but
tell
not
me.
making a-
You're trying to tell me that Kirk Cousins is winning games by himself when he's not. Kirk Cousins doesn't win them anything.
He's not losing them anything. The defense is losing them things. When he goes into last
He's
year,
not winning them anything. Daniel, this is not this is what I'm saying. If you want to sit there and make the argument that Kirk Cousins is somehow on the level of guys like Joe Burrow and Deshaun Watson when it comes to how he elevates the team, it's just fucking silly. Kirk Cousins is a game manager.
Now you're lying out.
That's been what you've been saying for 10 minutes.
No, I'm saying that he's not a bad quarterback. He's not the reason they're losing.
I never said I literally said multiple times. All of these guys we mentioned aren't bad quarterbacks. They're just not elite. The difference between them and elite quarterbacks is the elite quarterbacks make up for your flaws other areas by being good enough to win you games by themselves. Jump on my back as I win this football game. That's what elite quarterbacks do.
And I'm saying Deshaun Watson's not elite to me because he's not showed it. 2 playoff.
Well, he's not elite right now because he hasn't played in 2 fucking years, but he damn sure showed it in his time with Houston.
It's only
when you win playoff games by yourself and your teammates are like, yeah, that guy just won this playoff game by himself. We literally he took over the fourth quarter and we won the football game because of him.
What are they going to say? Yeah, he's not winning games. We need a new.
You watched it with your own eyes, Daniel. It's not just your teammates coming out to say that. You watched him win that playoff game with your own eyes. Did we watch the same playoff game or not, Daniel?
And did you watch Kirk Cousins?
Did he win it? Did he win it by himself or not? Did he put the team on his back in the fourth quarter and go win the game by himself?
How many playoff appearances has Kirk Cousins had to Deshaun Watson's? 2-2. So you can't say any better.
But this is irrelevant. No, you're the one making the different argument, Daniel. You're the one making the different argument. You're the one trying to sit here and turn this into
each time. I'm saying the same thing each time.
No, you're not. No, you're not. What
I am. What have I said?
And in those playoff appearances, one guy clearly elevated himself as the guy that was the reason the team was winning football games, where one guy was just the guy that was there trying to not fuck it up too much and lose them football games. There's the difference. One guy was carrying the team on his back as they won playoff games. The other guy was just trying to not fuck it up.
He's only won 1 playoff game. How's that carrying him to playoff games? It's only been 1 game that they won.
He carried them to 2 playoff appearances on teams that had no business being there, and it was him that he was the reason they got there.
That's debatable because those 2 teams had good defenses right there. But then you're going to go into it, and it's the last
completely overrated defenses.
I beg to differ. But then you go into it, and his last year they shit the bed and go 4-12. But then with Kirk Cousins, he hasn't made the playoffs, but that team just isn't drafting well. They're not putting the pieces together. And then it's what have you shown for me lately? And Kirk Cousins last year had 4,200 yards, 33 touchdowns.
Well, he always has a ton of yards. He always has a ton of yards. And Prescott goes for a ton of yards too, though, bro. What's it have to do with anything? Why are they throwing for these yards? How do these yards happen? How do these numbers get accumulated? Are they accumulating these numbers in garbage time areas of football games where all you're doing is throwing the ball late in the game because you're down by 2 touchdowns and you have to throw the ball? Because that is a lot of times where Dak Prescott gets his yards. That's a lot of times where Kirk Cousins gets his yards.
Yeah, but then he only had 7 interceptions. And Dak always throws a lot of interceptions. So it's proven to my point that he's not making those mistakes. But when he balls out and the other side of the ball, we could go at this any day. I don't think Watson is an elite quarterback. I think he's overrated, and he's proven it because when you make.
Well, we don't know what the hell the guy is right now. He can't even be like in any type of list of quarterbacks because he's not playing.
And the best thing for a quarterback is your availability, and he's put himself into a situation where he's not available, yet he still can pay $200 million guaranteed.
Well, yeah, I don't know why this turned into who's a more elite quarterback. Like, that was never the point. The point of this conversation was we were talking about we were trying to use the comparison. We were trying to use comparison of what Jalen Hurts can be. And how to get there, and the difference between him and what guys that are better than him are. That's what this is. This was never supposed to be a conversation of who's a better quarterback in 2022. One guy's not playing football and has 66 sexual assault allegations against him, and another guy's the starting quarterback for Minnesota.
And no one's talking about 2022. You were the one who brought up Kirk Cousins as being a bad quarterback, and I'm telling you that he wasn't.
I didn't say he was a bad quarterback, Daniel. I never said that. I actually said the complete opposite. No, I said the complete opposite. I literally said multiple times he's a good quarterback, but there's a difference between being a good quarterback and being an elite quarterback. And the elite quarterbacks are the guys that make up for all the flaws, the rest of the flaws that your teams have. It doesn't make you a bad quarterback if you're a guy that can't make up for those. There's plenty of good quarterbacks.
I heard you say he was bad.
There's plenty of good quarterbacks that are in that conversation. They're tier B quarterbacks. That's the step down from the guys that are the really, really good ones. And the reason why they're a step down is because without a perfect team around them, they're not winning you anything. He's no better. He's no better than any of these other guys that we want to throw around that play for teams that put up gaudy numbers. But you look at it and you go, great. Like, he's Matt Ryan in all his years with the Falcons, right? And then you had 1 year with Matt Ryan, where everything was perfectly put around him from a coaching perspective and all that, and they got the absolute most out of Matt Ryan and got an MVP season out of him. When you look at those rosters that were on those teams, and he's throwing the Julio Jones and all these guys, the fact that to me, Matt Ryan's a guy that's a good quarterback. It was never ever anything more than that because of that, because of everything that's around him there. And you go, yeah, you put up good numbers. It was sexy to look at on a stat line, but did you ever put that team on your back and win anything for them? Matt Ryan never put that team on his back and win anything for them. He had the 1 year as the MVP, right? The MVP year, okay, yeah, that's why you won the MVP. But those were 2 years that you had Kyle Shanahan as your coordinator. You take Kyle Shanahan out of it, and you're right back to the same quarterback you've been your whole career. A guy that puts up nice numbers, but never puts the team on your back to go win football games when it's needed. So is Matt Ryan a bad quarterback? No, he's not a bad quarterback. He's probably going to be a Hall of Famer. But at some point, all those numbers aren't good enough for him.
And you got to look more into the numbers with those. But that's a whole thing that I can go into with him because of his whole situation. Like, there's more to it.
I hate pointing out numbers when it comes to quarterbacks.
Because a lot of it comes towards numbers. You can't just say, the team did this bad because he didn't perform. There's a lot of scenarios that go into it with these guys, whether it's numbers, players.
But you can't just go read a stat line.
I'm not throwing a stat line. I'm just saying there's a lot of scenarios that go into it, and you just make it sound like it's so easy. Like, this guy is going to dominate. This guy could be a one-in-a-generation player. But if you don't surround him with it because of the number that he's going to cost you, it's going to be a detriment to your team. Whereas a guy that might be less than him, more cost effective, could add more to the team with the amount of money you're going to save. It's not going to be a guy that's going to carry the team. Look at guys that carry teams and how they do in the playoffs. They don't fare well. They don't feel well at
I mean,
all.
you've got to be able to have the ability to carry your team. The Bills are fucking have a star-studded roster. They've got one of the best rosters in football, but Josh Allen still has the ability to put that team on his back and go win a football game single-handedly at any point because he's just that fucking good.
And then on top of that, they have the number one defense.
Sure. All of that comes in.
So it goes hand in hand.
But this is where, you don't want to follow along my point. Put Kirk Cousins up next to Josh Allen, and you'll be like, which one of these guys can actually dominate a game by himself? And if nothing else is going right for this team, we can still win because of that guy single-handedly. And which one of these guys needs everything else around him to be perfect in order for me to win? And it becomes obvious who the elite quarterback is and who the guy that just the good quarterback is.
Well, of course, if you're going to throw them.
And give me an example of this lesser of trying to have a quarterback that's making less money, that's not on a rookie contract sort of thing, because a guy like Burrow on a rookie contract is going to be one of the highest paid quarterbacks in football. But this logic that you're talking about of, have a star-studded roster with a guy that's a little bit of a lesser quarterback. When do they go win a Super Bowl?
You're changing my logic. And
you just said your logic, Daniel, was that you could take a really, really good roster.
No, it's not. That's not my logic. But I'm not going to be able to get into it right now because we got guys that are coming on after us. We're going to have to. Are they doing a show? I didn't think Andy and them are doing a show. But we're gonna. I believe they are. So we're gonna have to wrap this up right now. But it was a nice debate to end the show tonight. I'm just saying, defending Kirk Cousins as a primetime player is not the hill you ever want to die on. I can debate it. I know I can, so I will. But that's another day. And it has nothing to do with him as the player. It's just I know my eyes see what he's played and who he's been on. And if your eyes watch Kirk Cousins and tell you he's an elite quarterback based off what his skill set is and what he does, you need to stop watching football, Daniel. Literally. This is the problem. No. The problem is you're saying I'm saying he's elite, and I didn't say he's elite. That's not what I said. And that's the problem. You keep telling me I keep saying he's elite, and I'm not. That's not the point that I'm getting across. You're trying to make this argument that he's good enough to win you a Super Bowl, though, or something, which is really weird. No, I'm going off of the point that you made. You made the point first, and then I piggybacked off of it with something. So you're the one who. What was the point that you think I made? I want to know what the point is that you think I made. We'll talk about it next time because I'm pretty sure we got the guys coming on after us, and we've run a little bit over. Frank told me they're not coming on. And I got to get going because I got. Oh, see, that's what it is. You've got to get going. And that's on top of it. But we had a good show today. We're running into the All-Star break, so not very much is going to come on in the next week. So all we got is the All-Star break and then whatever news for next week. But other than that, I'll let you close this out for tonight. Close it out for tonight. I don't want to close it out. See, I want to keep arguing. You're no fun. You just over here like fucking get somebody all worked up and then try to, shut it down. Can't do that. That's ridiculous. I can't wait. I can't wait to go tell Tom that you think Kirk Cousins is worth defending in this way. Good Lord. You might be banned from HUD next. It's not going to happen. Get 20% off free. Is that the one we're going with to end the show, the Manscaped promo? Or am I just cutting? Am I just sending us off? Here you go. Into our misery for the night. Oh, Alan. Yeah, Alan, the one that needs to be here to speak on this as far as Kirk Cousins and what his standing is as a quarterback. Our resident Vikings fan. If you're looking to buy or sell a home, or looking for a change in career or brokerage, you contact Alan Foley of eXp Realty LLC at 302-682-8820 or visit him at alan.foley@exprealty.com. I'm Zach. That's Daniel. As usual, I carried the show, unlike Kirk Cousins, and a lot like Deshaun Watson. And, until next time, I guess this debate will have to rest, and we'll pick it up where it left off. Yep. Everybody, enjoy the All-Star break and the Home Run Derby, and we'll see you next week. Go Kyle Schwarber.